What was I saying? I don't even know. Oh, we're doing top fives. We're using the pumpkin spice and everything nice beads. And I normally have a strand and a mix to show you guys, but I don't today because I've already used these so much. I just have them in a little container. Okay, so I don't have any of the packaging. It's the end of the month, so you have to forgive me for that. But yeah, I've pulled a selection from the pumpkin spice and everything nice beads. And if you do not have those yet, definitely go check it out over on jessijamesbeads.com. 30% off all Halloween. Take advantage of that because today we're doing pumpkin spice and everything nice. Tomorrow on Sara Ellis Designs, I'm going to show you guys life after Halloween. How can we use Halloween beads in other ways that are not necessarily Halloween so that we can carry those beads throughout the rest of the season? And not just this season, for the whole rest of the year. The earrings that we're making, you could wear any day, all year long. So there's that. Today we're talking about must-have top fives. This is a really fun list for me to make. Sarah asked me to make a list of my top 5 must-have bundled together. Okay, so it's not just 5 specific items. These are actually bundled together. And what's really cool about it is you can go over to jessijamesbeads.com and purchase these bundles. You can get, hold on, I had it up just a second ago. So, like the very first thing that we're talking about is wire. I'm going to talk about a couple of different sizes of wire. We're going to make some earrings. And then we're going to talk about some other things, and we're going to make some more things. We're going to make 2 pairs of earrings today. Quick and easy. These are not hard earrings. We're just going to whip these up really, really quick. And then we're actually going to kind of do it backwards. Like we're going to put the earrings together, but then we're going to make the component pieces later on as I'm talking about some other things. So just kind of bear with me. I know it's going to be a little out of order, but you'll get it all in the end. But you can pick up everything that I'm talking about over on jessijamesbeads.com. Go check that out. So if you want the wire bundle, you can get all the sizes together, or you can buy them separately. You can get the tools that I'm going to talk about, or you can buy them separately. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. So let's talk about wire, because top 5, starting with wire. Top 5 things you've got to have. Obviously, you've got to have good wire to use, and German style wire is my favorite to use. If you prefer artistic wire, that's totally fine. I know a lot of people who are beginning with wire. Artistic wire is the way to go because it's softer, but for all of my wire wrapping, my wrapped loops that you guys go crazy for, I use German style wire. It's my favorite. It's a little bit more sturdy than artistic wire, and it really is specifically designed to wire wrap with. So there's that. So my bundle includes the 4 sizes of German style wire that I use the most. It doesn't mean that I don't use other sizes, because I do. And there's a huge selection of sizes. There's a huge selection of colors. But these are the 4 that I reach for the absolute most. So we're going to start with the biggest wire and work our way down. We are talking first about 18 gauge. Now, I'm going to show you the package that I have is not the package you're going to get, okay? Because I get wire in like bulk sizes because I use a lot of it. So don't go by what my package is, but I'm just showing you because you're also going to have all of this information on the package that you are going to get. It's just not going to be this great big huge spool. 18 gauge wire. Here it is right here, okay, and this is the gold color. This is the color we're going to use for the earrings that we're using today. I've got gold color for everything, but you can also get this bundle in the silver color as well. So 18 gauge wire is the smallest number in the list of wires, but you can see this is a thicker gauge wire. This wire is my go-to size for making components, and I'm talking hoops or sometimes ear wires. It is a little big for ear wires. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but 18 gauge is nice and sturdy, so it makes really good. Here, I've got a component ready because we're actually going to make this teardrop shape today. I did this with 18 gauge wire. A lot of the projects that you guys have seen where I have made some sort of component or a little curlicue or whatever it is, I go for the 18 gauge wire. The reason being is it doesn't take a whole lot of work hardening to use 18 gauge wire. You do want to work harden it just a bit, just for some extra security. But for the most part, it's going to retain its shape during everyday wear, which is super important. It's really unfortunate to make a piece of jewelry and then go out and wear it and, you know, it loses its shape. That's no fun. You don't want that to happen. So I go for the 18 gauge wire when I'm making components that I'm going to be hanging other things from. It's sturdy enough to hold up lots of beads, heavy beads. So 18 gauge wire, that's number one. Number two in my wire list, there's 4, is 20 gauge. Now this is going to be a step down. Bigger number, smaller wire. So 20 gauge is perfect for ear wires and jump rings. So if you like to make your own ear wires and jump rings, then 20 gauge wire is going to be where you want to go next. And you can see, I'm going to hold this up next to the 18 gauge wire. Now it's going to be a little bit difficult to see, but you'll understand there is a difference. I know it's just slight when you're looking at it this way. Good morning, Jane. So the difference is just a tiny, tiny bit, but you can see there definitely is a difference here. Okay, so 20 gauge wire used to be the wire that I would use for absolutely everything. When I very first got into wire wrapping, 20 gauge, and it is a very popular gauge in wire, I used to do everything with it. I made head pins, eye pins, any kind of wire wrapping, I would do it with 20 gauge wire for the longest time. Over the years, I have noticed that it is a little bit more bulky, obviously, than some of the smaller gauged wires, and it's really kind of personal preference. So if 20 gauge head pins and eye pins are what you were looking for and it doesn't feel overpowering to you, then go for it. Otherwise, I take mine a step down to 22 gauge. But for all of my ear wires, 20 gauge is where it's at, okay? It's still sturdy enough to hold its shape. You're going to work harden it. You're going to have perfect jump rings. You're going to have perfect ear wires, and you don't have to worry about them coming out of their shape. Anything smaller than that, I do tend to worry, particularly if you have longer hair or customers that have longer hair. If your earring, that 22 gauge wire or smaller ear wire gets stuck in your hair for whatever reason, it happens. It has a tendency to pull out, even if you work harden it. So 20 gauge is really the one for that. All right, so next step down, just like I'm saying, we're going down. Number 3 out of the wire is 22 gauge. This is my go-to wire. I use this for literally everything, except for ear wires and jump rings and components. Okay, so that's silly, I know. But any wire wrapping that I'm doing, wire wrapped loops, any kind of decorative wire wrapping, 22 is, that's my meat and potatoes when it comes to design work. Again, personal preference, but if you're buying it in a bundle, you're going to get the 20 and the 22. You've got the best of both. If you're used to using 20, I encourage you to pick up the 22 and give it a try. See how your wraps, your wire wrapped loops in particular, will feel different. Just a step down in size may make all the difference in the world. So if you're struggling with wrapped loops, I hear that all the time. You guys are like, my wrapped loops don't ever look as good as yours. Maybe try different size wire. If you're using 22, go up to 20. If you're using 20, go down to 22. Give it a little test. See what works best for you, and you may be surprised. It may be all in the size of the wire. Everybody is different, so you never know. And you can buy it in a bundle, so you can't go wrong. All right, last but not least in wire is 24 gauge. And 24 gauge is definitely the smallest out of all of these. This wire is a very small wire. I will pull it out for you. I feel like this wire gets, doesn't get nearly as much love. See how thin? I feel like it doesn't get nearly as much love as it should. A lot of times people will look at the 24 gauge wire and just looking at it will say, that's not big enough. It's not thick enough for what I need. But the truth is, it kind of depends on what you're doing. For smaller beads, and you're going to see, we're going to do some here in just a second, I like to use the 24 gauge wire because it is smaller. It doesn't overpower the design. The metal does not take over. Smaller beads or gemstones, some glass beads, depending on what it is, Swarovski, smaller Swarovski in particular, anything that has a smaller drill hole, 24 gauge is going to be the wire that you want to use, because if you try to force a 22 gauge wire through a gemstone bead that has a small drill hole, like a pearl, sorry, the rain scared me. It hit the window really fast. I don't know if you can hear that. It was like pouring down rain and thundering. The 22 gauge wire, if you try to force it through a pearl or a gemstone, it may fit, but you may risk cracking your bead, your gemstone, your pearl, your glass bead, your Swarovski crystal. So you definitely don't want to push it. If 24 is going to fit comfortably, that's really where you need to go. So always have some 24 gauge on hand, particularly if you're using more expensive beads or gemstones. It's good to have on hand, not just for that, but for wire wrapping more intricate designs where 22 gauge may be a little bit too big to create some filigree, some really intricate loops and decorative work. 24 gauge is going to give you more flexibility. Obviously, because it's a smaller wire, it's going to be easier to work with. You can really do you can do finger loops with 24 gauge wire, whereas for me personally, I kind of struggle with that with 22. I can do it, but I feel like my finger loops, I should show that to you guys one day, because some of you may not know what I'm talking about. It's just freestyle, free-form wire wrapping. 24 gauge is really small enough to do that and do it well. All right, so I've told you all four. You can go buy all four of those all together, or you can buy them individually. Are we stuck? Okay, sorry. I was like, I'm seeing you guys talking about being stuck, and I thought maybe you meant like I was frozen, because yeah, okay, yeah, the weather is bad, okay? All right, so let's put together a pair of earrings where we're going to use at least 3 of these gauges of wire, and I'm going to show you the instances where the sizes are appropriate. Then I'm going to come back and we're going to move on to number 4 out of my top 5s, okay? So these are quick and easy earrings. This is not going to take any time at all. All right, so I'm going to move you guys around a bit. Can you hear that rain? Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Hi James. All right, so let's put together some earrings using some of this wire. Oh, you guys are in a kind of a funny place here. Let me fix you. I've got a new tripod and I'm excited to work with it. All right, can everybody see? Is everything okay? Because I've got a comment here that says, Cheryl says, I can't see anything. I'm really worried. You guys, can you guys see what's going on? Hi, James. Happy Halloween. James is my Halloween friend from Soft Flex. All right. So the earrings that we're going to make, I'm going to show them to you, and then we are going to kind of deconstruct and then reconstruct. Okay, good. You see me. I'm so glad. I was a little worried. All right. So these earrings are using some of the pumpkin spice beads, and I've got 3 beads here. This is like the body, if you will, of our earring, and I've done some wire wrapping here. So the 22 gauge wire is obviously what I used, because you guys have seen me do wire wrapped loops 100 million times, and 22 gauge wire is what I use. So we're going to do that with the 22 gauge wire. The ear wire is a handmade ear wire, and it's made out of 20 gauge. So again, like we were talking about, that 20 gauge, that's really my go-to for things like ear wires and jump rings, okay? But then we're gonna move down here just a bit. So one of the tassels that came in the pumpkin spice and everything nice, I got you now. I got you now. I was like, what are we talking about? All right, so one of the tassels, there's actually two because we're making a pair of earrings, obviously. But just to do something a little bit different, I feel like you guys are out of focus really bad. There we go. I took a hole punch, just a metal hole punch, and punched a hole through that little section of the metal on the tassel that comes down so that I could hang a bead here. And I am using one of these really beautiful beads. This is one of the smaller beads. If I can get the tassel away from it, you guys can see it a little bit better here. So I'm using a really beautiful but smaller glass bead here, and I've done a little kind of decorative wire wrap, not anything super fancy, but because this is a smaller bead, I used the 24 gauge on that. So that's what we're gonna do, okay? Now, some of this is already ready, and it will be with the other earring as well, but like I said, just bear with me because there is a reason for the things that I'm doing in the order that I'm doing them in today. So for this one, I went ahead and punched the hole. So that's ready to go. And I have a piece of 22 gauge wire. This is longer than normal. Normally when we're doing just our regular wrapped loops, you only need about 3 inches. I've given myself well over 3 inches so that we can do the little wire wrapping across all of our beads. Okay, so let's start with that. So we're going to come in with our chain nose pliers and we're going to come down on that wire till about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. Okay, just whatever you're comfortable with. A little blurry. I'm so sorry. I hope everything is okay. Now, I know the focus was having trouble. All right, so I'm grabbing that wire. I'm going to bend that wire 90 degrees. Okay, kind of straightening out the tail here because we've got a lot to work with. Okay, and now I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. And we are going to go up and over. Okay. And I'm going to adjust my grip. I'm going to go ahead and guide that wire around, switching hands. Okay. It's really struggling to focus today, huh? That's weird. All right, and I'm just going to grab this tail end of the wire and I'm going to wire wrap. I'm going to go around about 3 times. Okay. And then I'm going to come in and trim off my tail. All right, so we have our wire wrapped loop ready to go. So we are going to go ahead and thread on 3 beads. We're going to thread on one of these smaller orange beads from that pumpkin spice and everything nice. One of these beautiful, it's kind of a yellow gold rondelle. And then a larger rondelle that's in that metallic brown. Let me adjust you guys just a tiny, tiny bit. I just feel like maybe there's a better angle here. It's hard to tell. Hard to tell. New tripod, new lights. I'm just trying to figure everything out. So thank you for your patience. All right, so now I'm going to come down here to the end. And just like always, we are going to wire wrap a loop here on the end. So I'm going to bend that wire 90 degrees. And then coming in, hi Mary, coming in with my round nose pliers again, up and over. Okay. Moving the wire out of the way to bring that loop on around. And then I'm going to wire wrap about 3 times. But now we have this long tail of wire left. So we are going to use this to our benefit. I'm going to take it off the pliers. If you're more comfortable working with it on the pliers, then certainly leave it, but you don't have to. I'm going to lay this across the surface of that larger rondelle bead, okay? Just like that. And then I'm going to actually wrap all the way around once and then back to the front. So it almost looks like there's a jump ring between the 2 beads, but it's not. It's the wire that we're using, which again, 22 gauge, okay? Same thing, I'm going to lay that wire across the surface of that golden bead. I'm going to go to the back all the way around and then back. Okay, same thing, I'm going to go across the surface of that orange bead and then all the way around. I'm going to wire wrap over the wraps that I already made, just covering those up with my wire wraps. Okay, so now I'm going to come to the back and I'm going to trim off that tail. And now the body of our earring is ready to go. And you can hang this either direction. It makes no difference. You can go this way, you can go this way, whatever makes you happy. It really doesn't matter. If you need to twist your loops so that they are nice and lined up, definitely do that. You can use 2 pairs of pliers to do that. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add the tassel to the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to open up the loop that is on the tassel, and I'm just going to thread it on to, whoops, I want to thread it on the right direction though. That is important. And then close that back. Okay. So we're more than halfway done at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and add an ear wire. We're going to make this ear wire in just a little while. So I'm actually going to show you how to do that, but not yet. Not yet. We're not quite there yet. So we're going to go ahead and put that on. And at this point you could be done if you wanted to, but because here at JJB we are extra, so like I said, I punched that hole there. We're going to add a little decorative bead to that. So we are using one of these beautiful rectangle shaped beads, again a smaller glass bead. So what we're going to use is our 24 gauge wire for this, and I have made my own head pin. Now don't be disappointed, we're going to do these later. Don't worry, I am going to walk you through these later, but we're not there yet. Not there yet. Like I said, the order of all of this is definitely different. So I'm threading on my glass bead onto that 24 gauge wire with that little rosette here at the bottom that we're actually going to wrap around here in just a second. So we're going to treat this the same way we would any other wire. Okay, we're going to bend. We're going to come in with the round nose pliers, up and over, adjusting my grip, coming on around, switching hands. I'm going to move these out of the way. And then I'm going to wire wrap, and I've got room for 4 wraps. Okay. Now I'm going to take the tail end of this wire because we do have extra, and same thing. I'm going to lay it across the surface of that rectangular bead. Now it's not going to lay the same way it would on a circular bead, obviously, because we're working with a different shape here. So I'm going to lay that across one of the flat surfaces on the rectangle, and then I'm going to take this bottom wire and I'm going to wrap it around that rosette that I made. Okay, not just once, we're going to go a couple of times. We're going to build it up. So I'm going to show it to you this direction. So we started out with a little rosette from that handmade head pin, and now we're just adding some extra little decorative flair to that. Okay, just kind of building up and wire wrapping on around. Just do as many times as you want to, or none at all, totally up to you. And when you're satisfied with it, go ahead and snip it off. Now, what's cool about it is because it's 24 gauge wire, you can come in then with your chain nose pliers and very easily, lots of traffic today, you can very easily tuck that underneath so that it is nice and safe and will not get stuck in your hair. Yeah, straighten that up just a little bit. Okay, so there is our little decorative bead ready to go. Okay, and we're just going to add that to the front of our tassel, and we are using a very tiny 4mm jump ring for this. And honestly, this may be more like a 3mm jump ring. I don't really know. It's just a really small one. Very unobtrusive, okay? Using a very, very small jump ring for this. I'm going to thread that on to that hole that we punched in the tassel, and then thread our bead on and close that back. Oh. And there we go. So we've made an earring using 3 different sizes of wire out of the 4 that I mentioned. So the body of the beads here, the body is 22 gauge, the ear wire is 20 gauge, and then the decorative bead at the bottom is using the 24 gauge. So we definitely used almost all of those wires. And later we are going to use the 18 gauge wire for a second earring. So don't go anywhere. All right, so now I'm going to flip you around again, and we are going to talk a little bit more, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we were talking top 5s. So top 5, number 5 was 18 gauge, 20 gauge, 22 gauge, 24 gauge wire. Buy that in a bundle, buy it separately, but you can get it over on the Jesse James Beads website. Also, there is a blog, Top 5 Must-Haves, that I wrote that goes along with what we're talking about today. So if you forget one of these items, you can check it out on the blog. Everything is in order for you. All right, so we're down to number 4. What is number 4 of my top 5s? Or number 2, depending on which direction you're counting. I don't know. The next little bundle for you that is one of my must-haves is, you guys have seen me use it a million times, a nylon hammer. Gotta have this. And you cannot have a nylon hammer if you don't also have a block, right? So maybe you have one, but you don't have the other. You can hook yourself up over on jessejamesbeads.com. You can get them together. You can get them separately, whatever you need. Now, my block is not the same as the one that's over there. The block that's on the side is better than this one. This one I have had for a million years, and I don't particularly love it, but a block is a block. The one, like I said, on the website is better than the one I have. But you need a good hard surface. You don't have to have a huge block. You don't have to have an anvil. Just a desk-sized block, which is exactly what is bundled with the nylon hammer. So why the nylon hammer? The nylon hammer, I use this more than any of the other hammers, and I have a whole stack of hammers because I love to whack on anything. It doesn't matter what it is. I love to get my aggression out by using a hammer on my jewelry, but I use the nylon hammer because it does not make marks on the wire surface or the component or whatever it is that I'm working on, whether I'm working with intricate filigree pieces that I need to be extra careful with, or if I am working with wire that maybe is braided or is twisted. Any of those, I only trust my nylon hammer for that because it does not destroy the surface as I swing it around. I'm definitely a hammer girl, can you tell? It does not destroy the surface of the wire. It's not going to leave any marks. It's not going to flatten. That is one thing that with your... Jane says she's a whack job. Jane can say that because she's my friend. That's funny. So it doesn't flatten the wire. If that's what you're going for, then a chasing hammer is the way to go. If you want to add texture, then the ball part of your chasing hammer is the way to go. But if you are only looking to work harden and keep the integrity of the piece, do not change the outer structure, but just make it stronger, then nylon hammer is the way to go. All right, hold on just a second. You're not going to be able to see anything interesting until I get you back to where you're supposed to go. I'm so glad you guys put up with my silliness. It's so wonderful to get to be myself here and you guys not be like, oh my gosh, she's crazy. All right, so here's my block. And just to show you guys two things that two examples. So this is an ear wire that we're actually going to use here in just a little bit. And this is something that I would definitely want to work harden, particularly if it is one that I made myself. I don't necessarily worry about it too much when it comes to ones that I bought pre-manufactured, but definitely with my handmade ear wires, I like to put them on the block, and it doesn't take a lot. Okay, you just want to really kind of tap on it and make sure that you are getting every part of that wire. You don't want to leave anything out, okay? And you can see I'm not really whacking this really hard. I'm just kind of just gently hitting on it. I'm going to flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. And again, just want to be sure that I get the entire surface of the ear wire. Okay, so in a previous tutorial, we talked about why work hardening happens. It actually changes the molecular structure of the wire. If you are interested in all of that nerdy business, which I absolutely love, definitely go check that out. I can't remember exactly which tutorial it is, but I went in depth about wire hardening and why it is that it works, what happens to the wire. It makes all of those little particles there stand up at attention and harden that wire. So there really is a scientific reason that it happens. Or you can just Google it. There's a lot of really great articles about why it is that work hardening happens. So there is the ear wire, and you can tell it has not changed the surface of the ear wire at all. It has not flattened it, and it has not left any marks. That's the beauty of that nylon hammer. Okay, so that would be one instance. And then another instance would be a teardrop shape or any other kind of, oh my goodness, component. Sorry, a lot of talking today. Any other component that you've got that you want to work harden just a tiny bit. Now, this is the 18 gauge wire that we talked about just a little while ago. We are going to use this shape for an earring here in just a little bit, and I am going to work harden this, but it's already ready, meaning there are already some loops here, so I cannot lay it down on the block. I can't lay it on the block and it lay flat. If I did hammer it this way, it is obviously going to bend everything. So the little loops in our wire, I'm going to hang those off the edge of the block so that I can lay the teardrop shape nice and flat. And then I'm just going to hammer it just a tiny bit. Doesn't take a lot, particularly with your 18 gauge wire or any of your thicker wires. Just giving it a little extra help. I'm going to flip it over just to make sure that it is even on both sides. And if there was any bending that did happen to happen, I'm flattening it all back out. Okay. So that's all it takes. And you can feel the difference. If you've never work hardened wire before, I encourage you to try it out and just feel the difference, because it's not a subtle difference. There is a real difference in the way the wire feels from between work hardening and not work hardening. Okay. All right. So that's the block and the hammer. Now, I'm not going to move you back around just yet, because we are going to talk about tools. And this is probably my favorite part, because having a good set of tools is probably the most important part of jewelry making. Okay. If you do not, yes, Anita, and if you'll hang around, we're actually going to make that teardrop shape here in just a little while. I promise. So I encourage you, if you just started making jewelry, and maybe you are using tools that perhaps came out of the garage, that's actually how I started. I started with a pair of my dad's pliers, actually, a pair of work pliers. He was a carpenter and a writer, but he was a carpenter to pay the bills, and I used his tools, and I learned very quickly that those are not the correct tools to be using for jewelry making. So if you want good tools, invest in a set, right? You need to invest, because you are going to use them every single day. So this is my favorite set, and you can get this set over on jessiejamesbeads.com right now, like right this second. Sherry, yes, you can work harden before you put the loops on. You absolutely can. So this is a set of Beadle-On tools. This is the shimmer set. It is a travel set. That does not mean that the tools are smaller than normal. They are standard size tools, but they come in a very handy zipper travel pack. that you can just put all your tools in, zip it up, toss it in your bag, and you are ready for beading on the go, which is so convenient. I love it because it means that you don't have to have two different sets of tools. You just need one in a travel case and you're good to go. This set comes with all the pieces that you see here. Okay, so you're going to get everything. You're going to get, now I feel like a shopping channel, but that's okay because you need to know these things. You're going to get your round nose pliers. I love this set in particular because of the round nose and the chain nose pliers. Look how tiny. Okay, you can make the smallest little baby loops with these pliers. Like they really, really come down to a very fine point. These are perfect for making your own head pins. Going to show you how to do that here in just a little bit, okay? Perfect for wire wrapped loops. You've got a nice large mandrel section here so you can make a lot of different sizes of loops. I think the biggest loop you can make on here is probably a 5mm if I had to guess. Not quite a 6, but I will trade the 6mm for the tiny, tiny little loop that I can get at the bottom any day, okay? So you get the round nose pliers. You're also going to get the chain nose pliers. And again, look how tiny that tip is on that. That's really, really important to me because you can get pliers that, sorry, I was reading the comments there. Not before making the shape. No, you need to make the shape first, but you definitely can work harden before you make the loops. We'll talk about it here in just a little bit. Again, I promise. And I'll explain what I'm talking about. I was just answering a question. Okay, so the tip on these is really, really small. You can get pliers in all different shapes and sizes, and a lot of times the standard chain nose pliers, the tip of them is not nearly this tiny. I love that tiny because I can get into very small places, okay? Love that I can get into the tiniest of places with that tiny, tiny little tip. It's perfect. Plus, it makes the best sharp bends. If you need a 90-degree bend in a wire, this is the plier for the job, okay? So you're going to get that one. And you get the bent chain nose pliers. And again, they have that tiny little tip on them as well. The bent chain nose just gives you a different angle. Use these the exact same way you would your chain nose pliers. A lot of times I will use these in my left hand and the regular chain nose pliers in my right hand. I use these to open and close jump rings, working on all kinds of things. You got to have both of these, okay? Really cool to have the bent chain nose, again, to help you get into spaces that you can't necessarily get into when you've got just the straight chain nose pliers. All right. Next is the flat nose pliers. A lot of people will think, oh, I don't need the flat nose pliers. What would I ever use those for? Well, let me tell you a couple of things that you would use these for. You can make some really great bends with these. Obviously, you're going to get a nice sharp 90-degree angle out of these, but the surface area on these is wider, obviously, than your regular chain nose pliers. So you've got enough surface area here to close a number of components, particularly the components for cords, like cord ends. A lot of those are an alligator style clasp that needs to be closed evenly. This is going to help you close all of those components nice and even. Okay? Super, super important to have. All right, last but not least is a cutter tool. Everybody needs a cutter tool. This is just a standard cutter tool. It's not a flush cut. It's just a regular nipper. It's great for cutting everything. Your German style wires, your artistic wires, even your bead stringing wires. It's nice and sharp. It is handy to have. You've got it all in one pack. You've got all 5 of the tools in the travel container, and you just toss them in there, zip them up, and throw them in your bag, and perfect. Absolutely perfect. Now, the very best part of this, if you ask me, okay, the very, very best part. You can see I've had mine for a while. And I'm really hard on them. But the very best part of these tools, next to the really teeny, beany, tiny tips, is the size of the grips. Okay, I know it's hard to tell when you're like right up on my hands. They look like monster hands. But I have very small hands. I have really small skinny fingers and little hands. And so a larger, chunkier tool is really awkward and hard for me to hold on to. It's just too bulky for me. So the small grip on these is perfect. It fits my small hand. It's going to fit larger hands. It's going to fit everybody's hand. But if you've got a smaller hand, a smaller grip, this is definitely going to be probably the most comfortable out of all the tools for you. That's just my opinion. That's definitely why I am like in love with these tools. This is my absolute favorite. If you don't like this grip though, just a little added something here, since my other family at Beadalon is also watching. If you like all of the parts of this tool, but you don't like the small grip, there are actually some grip covers over on Beadalon's website that you can slide over these so that they are nice and cushioned if you need that extra cushion. But these are really, really comfortable tools. Okay, so you may not even need that, but you can if you need it. You can go pick up the covers for those as well. All right, so Myra, she is in snowy Saskatchewan. That is awesome. I love it. So number 3 on the list was a set of good tools. And luckily for you guys, you can grab this set of tools. You guys, if you're going to buy one thing for yourself for Christmas, treat yourself to a set of really good tools. They're going to last you forever. They're going to do the job. It's better than a greasy pair of pliers that you've grabbed out of the garage. I promise you will not regret making a purchase of good tools that are going to last. And the bonus is that they come with the travel pack, so you can just throw them in there and you're ready to go. Okay. Definitely, definitely, definitely get yourself some tools. Or maybe you're buying a gift for somebody coming up, a jewelry maker, maybe a beginner who's ready to step into the world of professional grade tools. This is where the magic is going to happen. All right. All right. So where were we? Okay. We were talking about number 4 or number 2, depending on which direction you're counting. This is all about wire shaping. So number 4 on my top 5 must-haves is a little bundle that includes a couple of different things that you guys are going to want to have. So these are bundled. Okay, I see. Sorry, I had to pull the website up. All right, so 2 tools that I cannot live without are my bell making pliers. And I've got these in the small size and in the large size. Thank you for being understanding, you guys. I really appreciate it. I'm so sorry. So wire shaping. This is something that I do all the time. If you are new to wire wrapping, you're probably just figuring it out, that wire shaping in bigger form than say your wrapped loops or just, you know, your little turns and bends, you're gonna start like really working with the wire. And to get the most bang for your buck out of wire is really kind of expounding and opening up your world of ways to manipulate that wire. So small bell making pliers, large bell making pliers. They both have 2 different size mandrels on them, and I had it pulled up and lost it. I lost everything just a second ago. So on the small bell making pliers, I believe this is a 2mm, and I want to say that this is a 4mm on this. And we can check it while we're here instead of, whoops. Yeah, that's a 4. So on the small bell making pliers, you've got the 2mm mandrel and you've got the 4mm mandrel, and that is going to give you the option to make 2 different sizes of loops. And then on the large bell making pliers, let me double check these real quick before I hold these up for you. So you're going to get a 5mm and an 8. I should have known that just right off the top of my head. And I did before the whole iPad came crashing down, and then my brain just went into panic mode. So you've got the 5mm and the 8mm mandrels on these as well as the 2 and the 4 here. So get them both so that you've got 4 different options as far as your loops are concerned. Now, what do I use my bell making pliers for? I use these for everything, and oddly enough, making bales is probably the last thing on the list of things that I do with these pliers. So they're obviously designed to make a bale for pendants, okay? So one side, the smaller portion, you're going to use that to connect to a jump ring, and the larger portion, you're going to connect this to the pendant. And you absolutely can do that. That's what they're designed to do. However, I use these for creating, if I need just a real quick set of jump rings. Since the mandrel is not tapered, I can fill this entire little section up, and I'll show you just how quickly you can work up a set of jump rings. So I can work up some jump rings really, really super quick in 4 different sizes if you've got both. I also do a lot of free-form wire wrapping with these. Somebody mentioned it just a second ago, the famous bubble technique that I do, the bubble wrap or the bubble loops that I make, where you kind of go back and forth in your little figure 8 shapes to create some really cool looking, very freestyle looking bubble designs. Or if you need to create a series of loops that are all consistently the same size, these are definitely going to be the tools that you're gonna gravitate towards. If you need to make loops of any size for any reason, these are going to be your go-to tools for that, for sure. But that's not all, and I'm gonna have to reach, so hold on just a second. I did not grab this guy ahead of time. So if you want to go even further, in my little bundle, you can get this 2 different ways over on jessiejamesbeads.com. You can get the bale making pliers, both of them together, or you can get them in addition to my other favorite wire working tool. Now this is one that we have used a ton in the tutorials that I have done here on Jessie James Beads. And if you have not grabbed this yet, what are you waiting for? This is on the must-have list for a reason. Must have the artistic wire mandrel set. I use this all the time. Like, it was on my desk right here next to me, and it wasn't here because I was actually using this before the tutorial this morning. I use it for everything, like literally for everything. So it's really lightweight. This is the handle. And I have actually marked the handle. This is a 31 millimeter handle. So if you need a 31 millimeter loop, you've got it right here. But it comes with 4 different tops that you can add to it. Okay, so you've got the triangle shape that you can add to it. You've got the oval shape that you can add to it. You have the square that you can add to it, and the most used is the round, okay? For me, at least, the round is the most used. The round and the oval I use the most. So it just slides right on down into the handle, and it's ready to use. I know some of you have this tool and stuck it in a drawer and never used it, or you just never really thought about it. I cannot sing enough praises for this. I absolutely love it. I have marked out, and of course some of mine have worn off where I've used them, but I measured out the millimeters on every step up, okay, so that if I'm looking for a specific measurement, I've got it marked with my permanent marker. And I believe 27.5 millimeters is the largest on the bottom, all the way up here to a 6 millimeter, okay? So if you were missing that 6 millimeter out of your bale making pliers, you've got it on the tip of your mandrel tool. What is this good for? Everything. I mean, let's just be honest. So you can make 64 different sizes and shapes. 64. Like, what tool do you have in your arsenal that you can say that about? 64 different shapes and sizes. That's crazy. That's crazy. I can make 64 different things, right? Absolutely bonkers. So I use this to create those teardrop shapes. I use this to make circles. I use this for hoop earrings. I use this for jump rings. Again, another really handy tool. If you need a jump ring really quick, you only need 3 or 4 of them, and you need them in a specific size or bigger. You can make chain links with this if you want to. I mean, it's really kind of, once you get this in your hand, the possibilities really kind of start to open up to you. You can wrap wire around the different sizes and then create wrapped loops, and then you've got these really cool components that you can spread apart and flower out the shapes, add beads to them. Really, really cool. So if you haven't thought about this tool, it's inexpensive, it's lightweight, you just stick it over on your desk and you're ready to go, and you've got the ability to make 64 different things. Like, that's pretty serious. One of my other very favorite parts of this is the oval shape. A lot of people don't know about the magic of the oval. So an oval jump ring is one of the strongest jump rings that there is, because the opening to the jump ring is on the side instead of on what would be the top or the bottom, depending on gravity and what you've got hanging from it, okay? So having the ability to make an oval with the opening on the side is like, I don't know, like when I figured it out, it was like, whew, mind blown. Had no idea previous to the oval. Just how sturdy that can be. That shape, you can use it in the same instances where you would use a circular style jump ring, but if you need that extra strength where you don't want that jump ring to come open for any reason, the oval shape is where it's at. And if you're making chain links, like you're making your own chain out of wire, the oval shape, again, where the opening is, your chain link will be super durable because that opening is on the edge instead of on the ends where the two pieces meet. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So just so you know, there's a reason that this is on my top 5 must-haves. So let's use what we're talking about. Let's make another pair of earrings real quick, okay? I'm going to show you how to make that teardrop shape. And I'm going to show you, using the bell making pliers, how to make an ear wire. And then we're going to pop them on the block, harden them up, and make a pair of earrings super, super quick. And then we'll talk about, I don't know what happened. Did you hear that? We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the last essential extras that you're going to need out of my top 5s, okay? So let's get flipped around. This time you guys are not going to fall out of anything, and I'm not going to hit the I'm not going to hit the power button, okay? So let's get you moving. I know you can't see anything yet, but you can now. All right. Get you set up here. Tighten everything up a little bit just for some extra security. I don't want you guys to fall away. Yes, coffee talk, Long Island style. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make this teardrop shape, okay, to create an earring. Let me show you the earrings. Okay, so these are just super simple, just some teardrop shaped earrings, and we are using more of those beads from the beautiful pumpkin spice and everything nice mix. Okay, and then we're going to make that ear wire too. So let's work this up really, really quickly. So you're going to need, I've got the oval on here, you're going to need the round attachment for your mandrel set here, okay? And then we're going to use some 18 gauge wire, and you're going to need 5 inches of the 18 gauge wire, okay? So to do the oval shape, the teardrop shape, what we're going to do is we're just going to place this on that biggest loop on the bottom here, that biggest ring. So that's the 27.5 millimeter, and just kind of find the middle, okay? And hold that with your thumb, then take your other hand and just guide that wire around. Now look at what's happened. I have not made them even. That's okay. You're just going to give it a little extra nudging in the right direction to get that teardrop shape. Okay, so very easily you can manipulate that wire to give you the shape that you need. Okay, so there is the teardrop shape to start with. Now, really, really easy what we're going to do next. So we're going to use the 2mm mandrel portion of the small bell making pliers, and we're going to create 2 loops on either end. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start on the left side, and it can be either or, it really doesn't make much of a difference, but I'm grabbing that wire right at the very, very tip, okay, and I'm just going to turn a loop, and I want you to notice the direction of the loop that I'm making. Okay, so that's going towards the outside, right? The loop is going this direction and laying on the surface of that wire. Okay, the loop that I'm going to make here, though, we're going to do the exact same thing, but this loop is going to go to the back. So same thing, I'm grabbing that wire right at the tip, and then I'm going to roll back. Okay, so when you're looking at it straight on, we've shortened that wire on this side and made a loop here that you only see if you turn it to the side. Okay, really important. Your 2 loops need to go 2 different directions. Okay, so now what we're going to do, quick and easy, I'm just going to bring in a pair of chain nose pliers, and very, very carefully and gently, I'm just going to laterally open that loop that we just made, and then I'm going to take it over here and hook it. Do you see what I did? I just came over and hooked it to this other side. Okay, then I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers and just close that loop back. And we've got the teardrop shape. That was super, super duper easy. Okay, and if the shape is out of whack, you can always give it a little nudging with your fingers. Okay, get it back to that teardrop shape that you want if it's out of whack just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to put it on the block. And yes, okay, so to answer the question that we were talking about earlier, the question was asked whether or not you could work harden this before it's hooked onto the other one. Do you see when I push them apart, do you see how that one is hooked onto this side? I hope that helps. Okay, so the question was asked, can you work harden this before you create the loops? Yes, but not before you make that teardrop shape. You need to make the teardrop shape first. Skip the loop part and go ahead and work harden, okay? You may want to stop your work hardening about 1/2 inch on the tips, just so that you still have the nice soft flexibility of the wire. You're still going to be able to bend it even if you work harden it a little bit, but you can definitely do the work hardening before you do the loops. But if you don't, go ahead and sit the loops off to the side so that the teardrop shape sits flat on the block, and then just give it a little tap on both sides. And be sure that you're even with it. You definitely want to do both sides. Don't ever just work harden one side, okay? Definitely do both. So now we have work hardened our teardrop shape. We're ready to go on to the next step. So the next steps are really super easy. We're just going to work this up real quick. So we are going to create a wrapped loop on either side here, and then we're just going to create some dangles with our leaves. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop in the middle of this. You'll see. Let's just get started and I'll show you. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on this middle section here. So we're going to take a piece of 22 gauge wire. We've got about, well, definitely more than we need. It's about 5 inches. You really only need about 3 inches for this. Coming in with my chain nose pliers, coming down to about 1.5 inches. Okay, I'm going to bend that wire 90 degrees, take the pliers away, coming in with my round nose pliers to go up and over, adjusting the grip, bringing the wire on around, coming to the other side, and switching hands, not coming to the other side. You know what I mean. And doing the wire wrapping there. So there's 3 good loops, or 3 good wraps rather, and I'm going to cut that off with my cutter tool. Okay, thread on our bead, And then same thing. I'm just going to create those wrapped loops on the other end as well. Same steps. Chain nose plier, then the round nose plier. Up and over. Okay. Bringing the wire around, coming to my other hand, and we're done. Okay, see, I had way more wire than I needed. All right, trimming that off. So now we have our little bead link. Okay, that's ready to go. We're going to go ahead and add this to the middle of our earring. And so to do that, we're going to use a 6mm jump ring. And let me grab another pair of my pliers. We're going to open that up. And I'm going to hook this through, it's going to go through the loop. Okay, I know this might be a little difficult to see. It's going through the loop that is to the back of your teardrop shape and then up through the loop that's on the top. Okay, so we're actually threading, whoops. We're threading the jump ring through both of the loops that are on our ear wire, or on our ear ring component rather, even though you don't see that one on the back, okay? That's just so this will hang in the middle. And then I'm just gonna thread that on and close the jump ring back. Okay, so you'll see when it hangs, now it's gonna hang nice in the center here, okay? So I don't know if you can tell where that jump ring is going. I know it's kind of awkward and difficult, and it looks like a hot mess from the side, but from the front, you can kind of tell. You just want to be sure that you are threading through both of those loops. Otherwise, it's going to hang off-centered for you, okay? All right, so I'm going to set this to the side for a second. And we're going to go ahead and make the ear wire. The dangles, I'm actually going to save because we're going to talk about those in just a minute. Okay, so let's make the ear wire. I'm going to use a piece of 20 gauge wire to create the ear wire. And I have no idea what happened to the piece, so I'm just going to cut a real quick piece here. Doesn't take much. Okay, just a little snippet of your wire, if you will. I'm gonna cut that funny section off of there. Okay, so I'm gonna use my bell making pliers to do this, and I'm actually gonna use both pairs of the bell making pliers. So for the very first loop, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab that wire using the small bell making pliers, okay? And I'm just gonna turn a loop. Just like that, okay? Now I'm going to come in with my large bell making pliers, and I'm going to grab that wire, okay, so that the P shape is facing away from the large mandrel. Okay, that's super important, okay? And the wire is coming this direction, okay, so it's underneath, but it's coming between the two barrel of the pliers, and then I'm just going to guide the wire up and around. So from the top, you see that shape? Okay, so when I take it off of the pliers, we have this funny little shape here that we need to trim down. So I like to come in with my cutter tool, and I cut that wire right at the, you can see the loop is laying up against the surface of my cutter tool. That ensures that I have the exact same size ear wire every single time. And I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers and grab the end of that wire and just give it a little turn. See? And so now you've got your own ear wire in just a couple of easy steps, right? Super duper easy. And it's a really comfortable ear wire. It's one of my favorite styles. It's just very comfortable to wear. Now you do want to be sure that you are going to hit the end of this with either a cup burr, or you are going to use your wire rounder tip for this. Definitely don't leave this edge raw like it is. But before you do that, you do want to put it on your block and Give it a little work hardening for sure. It was 20 gauge wire, so it is a little bit stronger than the 22 gauge wire that we used for our other wire wrapping today, but it still needs a little extra work hardening. All right, so there you've got your ear wire to add to your earrings. So let's do that. So very, very easy. Just gonna use my chain nose pliers, opening that loop that we made laterally, and then threading it onto that top loop on our earring component. Oh, I put this on the one that doesn't have the bead. Hold on, just kidding. I don't want to leave out the bead here. All right, and then just close that back, okay? And I put that on. No, it's backwards. All types of silliness today, you guys. All right, now we're cooking. All right, so we're almost finished with this earring, but we still have one more thing on the list to talk about, and you're gonna see why I have saved the last little portion of dangles, okay? So, top 5 must-haves. Number 5 or number 1, depending on which direction you are counting. Drumroll, please. Brrr. Okay, so the extra essentials that you have to have when making jewelry, just in my opinion, my top essential extras, other than everything else we talked about, is this little bundle right here. So this is the designer flush cutter, and this is the nylon jaw pliers. And you guys see me use these every single time we make a pair of earrings or a bracelet or a necklace. Charlene, you are right. It's just because it's Halloween. Lots of crazy energy in the air. So this is last, but certainly not least on the top 5 must-haves, okay? You can buy these individually or you can buy this as a bundle. If you don't have these, buy it as the bundle over on JessieJamesBeads.com. Do yourself a favor. It's so worth it. So let's talk about why. First of all, the nylon jaw pliers are used a million different ways. But what's great is that they do have that nylon jaw. They've got a large surface area so that you can open, or not open, but you can close components, and you don't have to worry about marking up the surface of the metal or the wire or whatever it is that you're using. That nylon jaw is really, really important when you're working with things that you don't want to create any metal marks on. They're just as strong as regular pliers, so you're going to be able to get a nice grip on whatever it is that you're working with. But if you guys have seen me make that head pin, that handmade head pin, you know how essential this tool is. You absolutely cannot make your own head pin in the technique that I show without having a pair of nylon jaw pliers. So let's do that. Okay, because that's how we're going to create the dangles for our project. And I'm going to do this with the 24 gauge because that's what we're using for the flower or for the leaves. And I'm also going to do it with the 22 gauge. I'm going to do the 22 gauge first, just because it's the wire that I use the most. So it only makes sense to show it with both. Okay, so some of you have seen this a million times. Some of you have not. Sharon, yes, they do sell replacement pieces for the nylon pliers. So you would just unscrew this little screw right here with a tiny, tiny pair of, with a tiny screwdriver, and then slip on the new ones and screw them back in. So yeah, you can get replacement tips for these. Okay, so we're going to use our round nose pliers. We're going to come to the very, very tip of that wire. Okay. We're going to roll around the very tip top of the pliers once. Okay. And then twice, right directly underneath that first one. And you want to stop right when you see where the wire was cut. Okay. So basically you're stopping where you started. Then you're going to take the tail end of this wire and you're going to bend it out this direction. Okay, take that off of the pliers. You've got your 2 loops here. You can see just a little coil. section. You're going to take the tail end of this wire and you're going to stick it back through those 2 loops going in the opposite direction. Okay? So you see you made this really weird, funny shape. Now this is where the nylon jaw pliers come in. You have to put the nylon jaw pliers here. You cannot use a pair of standard pliers for this, period. End of story. Does not work. Grabbing that wire right next to the 2 loops that we made, and then I'm going to come in with another pair of pliers, grab that wire, and pull it through. So I'm pulling it through the 2 loops, and I'm also pulling it across the surface of the nylon jaw pliers, okay? I've created this great little rosette shape. That's going to be the head of our head pin. And I've also very slightly work hardened the wire as it was running through the jaws of the pliers, okay? So not only are these nylon jaws good for opening or for closing components that you don't want to mark up, but it's a great way to straighten out your wire if you've got kinks in your wires. It's also a great way to very gently work harden your wire, okay? Lots of uses for the nylon jaw pliers, and now you've got a head pin that you're ready to thread some beads on, okay? So next, we're going to use the 24 gauge. We're going to do the exact same thing, but we're using the 24 gauge because that is the gauge we're using for the little leaves on our earring. Because remember, we are still building a pair of earrings. So same thing, grabbing that wire at the very, very tip of the wire and the tip of the pliers. Turning a loop right at the very tip once and then twice. Making sure to stop where you see the flush cut of that wire. Okay, then we're going to bend that wire out this direction. Take it off of the pliers, take it back through, and the 24 gauge wire is a little bendy, but that's all right. Okay, and now you want to come in with the nylon jaw pliers right where those 2 loops are. Yes, the first head pin was 22 gauge. This one is 24 gauge. All right, and now we're just going to pull. It's pulling that wire through to create that little rosette. Work hardening the length a bit. And now we have a nice head pin ready to thread a bead on. So we're going to thread on one of the leaves. Okay. And then we are going to come in with the chain nose pliers to create a wrapped loop. Round nose pliers coming in. We're going up and over, adjusting the grip, guiding that wire around, switching hands. And I've got room for about 4 wraps, and I have length left over. Because the 24 gauge wire is such a small wire, I'm going to double up. So I'm going to bulk up on those wraps. You can skip this part. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but sometimes I like to wrap back over, going from bottom to the top, back over those loops that I already made, just to kind of bulk that up just a bit. Okay? Again, don't have to if you don't want to, just personal preference. Okay? Then I'm going to trim off that tail. And we have a little leaf ready to hang as our dangle. Okay? And we need 2 more of these. I've got 2 head pins already ready, so I'm just going to whip these up real quick, and then we will make the last little part of our earring, and we will talk about the flush cutter, and then I will let you guys get on with your day, because I know I have kept you well over our regular time. But I do appreciate you guys hanging around with me, especially through all the mishaps today. If it's not been one thing, it's been another. But that's okay. We all made it. All right, so you can see I just whip that up real quick since we've already walked through it. Same thing, just one more, so we've got 3. Okay. All right, so there's that. Thank you guys. You guys are so sweet. All right, so there are our 3 little dangles, and we are going to attach these with some jump rings. Just 2 very, very tiny jump rings. So I'm going to open up a jump ring and I'm going to thread on all 3. Okay, and then I'm going to close that back. And then I'm going to attach another jump ring to this just to add an extra little bit of length to kind of separate the dangles out from the bead that we're going to hang them from. Okay, so I'm just linking that to another jump ring, and then we're just going to attach that to the bottom loop on the bead that we had and close that back. And we have a cute, cute, cute little pair of fall earrings. Simple, but very, very cute and stylish. You can't go wrong with hoop earrings, you know, whether they are regular circles or this really cute teardrop shape that I really, really love. So those are super simple, quick and easy. I know we kind of broke it down into a lot of steps, but you know, when you go back and re-watch, you'll see there was only like maybe 3 or 4 real main steps to putting the earrings together. All right, so last but not least, let's talk about the flush cutter just because it needs a little bit of love before we go. Because again, it was bundled with the nylon jaw pliers. This was top 5. So number 5 was this bundle of both of these extra essentials that I cannot live without. So I've been singing the praises of the designer flush cutter since day 1. You guys know, if you've watched my other tutorials, you know that this is my go-to cutter tool for German style wire, artistic wire. I do not use this on anything else. At least I try not to. You guys have seen me, you know, I'll cut a piece of leather just if I don't have anything else on hand. But as a general rule, I don't use these for anything else. This is a little, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not Willy Wonka. This is not a cheap pair of cutters, but it's worth every penny. And if you take care of these, they will last forever. Like, that's no joke. These will last you forever. When you get them, they are super, super sharp. And if you take care of them and only cut wire with them, they will remain that way. Okay, so don't go cutting paper with these. Don't get crazy. Don't get crazy. I don't even like to cut bead stringing wire with these. So, and if I find a family member with these in their hand, oh man, it's bad news. Same with my beading scissors as well. All right, so why is this tool so important? I'm going to show you. Okay, it's called a flush cutter for a reason. Because with just a standard cutting tool, I don't know if you can tell or not. I don't know if I've got a better example. Okay, well, no, this is a really good example if you can see it. Let me move it out of the way so you can see. So with just a standard cutter tool, you're going to get a nice cut on your wire, no joke, but it comes at a little point, right? It is a really sharp point. And sometimes you don't want that. If it's in places that don't matter, then that's great. But if you want a flush cut, like a serious flush cut, this is the way to go, okay? You can't get a better flush cut than that. I'm serious. I don't know if you can even see, but it's so sharp and so clean. You've got a nice flat end. Now, why does this matter? Matters for a couple of reasons. Number one, it matters if you're making ear wires. Remember when we were talking about the ear wire here at the end, how you need to use the cup burr, you know, or you need to use the wire rounder tip on this. If you go ahead and have a nice flush cut already, you're halfway there, okay? It's even easier to create that nice rounded shape, and you don't have to work nearly as hard to get a nice round shape if you're starting with a flush cut before you even get there, okay? Second reason why this is super important, if you are making loops and those loops need to sit on the surface of another piece of wire and you want it to sit nice and clean, this is why. Let me show you, okay? So if I'm creating a loop, and I didn't close that one all the way. You see how nicely that end of that wire is sitting on the surface of the wire that's running this direction? It just makes it sit perfectly. It is nice and clean. You cannot get that cut with just a regular tool. And I know that seems like a really minor detail. And it may be. You may be at a stage in your design life where those little details don't matter yet. But after a while, after you get past the beginning stages of wire wrapping, these little things are going to separate you from the guy in the booth next to you. This is what's going to separate you from a hobbyist to a professional. That is professional wire work right there. I know it's just a teeny tiny detail, but it makes all the difference in the world. And when you work hard in this, it's going to work hard and it's going to stay in its shape. There is no wiggle room in there, okay? You can get a nice clean closure if you've got a flush cut. It's just, that's just the way it is. I'm not lying about it. So how does the flush cutter work? If you want the wire that you want to keep, you want it on the side, the smooth side of the cutter, okay? So this is the wire that I don't want over here. I'm going to get rid of this. I don't care what the tail end of it looks like. So that is gone. Don't need it. Doesn't have a flush cut on it. But the wire that I want to keep on the flush side. So just keep that in mind. Doesn't matter what direction you're going when you're working in those little tiny spaces, as long as the wire that you want to keep is on the flush side of the tool, on that nice flat surface, okay? Always keep that in mind when you're going to make your cuts with your cutter tool. So, yes. The largest gauge that I would recommend with the designer flush cutter is, I probably wouldn't cut anything over, I'd say maybe a 12 gauge. You can cut some pretty stout wire with this, not gonna lie. But anything thicker than maybe a 12 gauge, and that's really kind of pushing it. 14 gauge is definitely safe. 12 gauge is kind of pushing it, but anything thicker than that, I wouldn't even dream of it, because you're gonna create some really nasty places in your blades here. And you definitely don't want to do that, okay? Definitely don't want to cut anything other than your German style wire or your artistic wire with this. Do not cut memory wire with this. It will create really nasty places on your cutter tool and it will destroy them. So definitely worth the investment. This is an Italian made tool. It's gonna last forever if you take really, really good care of it. Somebody asked earlier what I would cut leather with. Definitely not this. I have just a standard nipper tool, and I actually have 3 or 4 of them because they're inexpensive. I use those to cut leather, and I use scissors to cut leather. Don't use these. Don't do it. Don't do it. So yeah. Last but definitely not least is this little combination here of my top 5 absolute must-haves. Love, love, love these two. If you don't have them, it's definitely worth the investment. Do yourself a favor. Grab them. You will not regret it. You will use them for everything. All right. Oh, golly. Here we go. Flipping you guys around again. I hope I don't lose you. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. All right, you guys have been troopers today. Oh my gosh, it's been a really long video today. I feel like I have been talking forever, and I know that I have, and you guys know that I can and have a tendency to do that. But I appreciate it. I appreciate you sticking around. I appreciate you coming back after I lost you for a second. I'm so sorry for that. But I thank you for your patience with me today. I hope that I have given you guys some insight into why it is I use the things that I use, and definitely go over to jessiejamesbeads.com and grab them for yourself. you know, treat yourself this holiday season, or grab them for the beater in your life that you might need to be buying something for Christmas. Pick out one of these bundles and give it to them for Christmas. It will definitely be a gift that will certainly be appreciated. I think that, you know, when you invest in the right tools, you are investing in yourself. You know, you're giving yourself the next step, you know, to be great. And we can all be great, you know, there's no reason why you can't be. So invest in the tools. Yeah, that's it. That was very anticlimactic. I should have had some big something, but I don't. Thank you guys. I just can't say that enough. Thank you so much for joining me last night as we went through the haunt. Thank you so much for sticking around with me today and going through all of my top 5 favorites. If you forget some of these or you don't want to watch the replay, definitely check out the blog on jessiejamespeeds.com. That list is there. I talk a little bit about each one of the bundles and why it is so great. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to me anytime, maybe not tonight. If you reach out to me tonight, I won't get to you until tomorrow. But yeah, so don't hesitate to ask me any questions. I hope I've given you, I know I've given you a lot of information. I hope it was at least good information. Have a wonderful, wonderful Halloween night, you guys. Please be safe. And if you wake up tomorrow morning and you need some more inspiration, come join me on Sara Ellis Designs Facebook page at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to be doing a really cool pair of earrings. I'm really kind of excited to show this to you guys. This technique that I'm going to show you is a really cool one. So if you're into wire working, this is one you don't want to miss. I'm going to kind of demystify like making your own chain. So come check it out. It's going to be a fun one. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Happy Halloween. I love you guys so much, and I will see you again soon. Bye, guys.